Hey Grant.
Hey Dennis, how are you?
All right, man. What's going on?
Oh, busy weekend. What about you?
Yeah, not really busy, but I like weekends.
Yeah, don't we all? Yeah, next weekend for club tennis, I'm going down to Georgia. So I'm excited
Wow.
for that. Yeah,
Club tennis travels all like that. That's amazing.
yeah, it's exciting.
Wow.
Uh,
Who pays for all that? Each individual?
who pays for it? So we get some allocation money from like club sports as a whole, but
Hmm.
then we pay dues also, which kind of
Okay.
goes to that, or uniforms, or however you want to call it.
How many folks do you have on the tennis team?
So we had about 45 people try out, and we kept 20.
It's
So
amazing.
10 guys, 10 girls.
Are any of them good enough to beat the guys on the regular team?
Um, Maybe one girl. There's no guys team anymore,
Oh, okay.
unfortunately. So technically, we're the best of the best. But there's one girl that's really good and probably could have gone D1 if she wanted to.
Yeah.
Um, but
Oh,
yeah, it's competitive.
that's very interesting. So there's no men's tennis team at ECU anymore?
There's not, no. So when COVID hit, they needed to cut funds and stuff. So they
Yeah.
got rid of both men's and women's for tennis and like swim and dive. But they ended up bringing back the women's tennis and women's swimming and diving.
Interesting.
Yeah,
They must have got a big donor to step up or something.
I think it might have been like Title IX stuff because like the football team takes so much money
Yeah.
that like even it out. But yeah, I mean the women are really good, so it's crazy to watch.
Yeah. That's great. Hey, Ray. Hey, Donna.
Good morning.
Dawn, how are you?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm good. Dawn, tell me about your Amazon store. Does that do well?
It does for being very organically. So we started it. I've got a girl out of New York that handles it for me.
Uh-huh.
Um, and it does well. It's a slow process just because I don't right now I don't pay for a lot of marketing because I just
Right.
financially don't have a lot of money extra to do that.
Understand.
But it actually does really well. The spices I started that about a year and a half ago. And then I just put my pimento cheese straws in a pound box, and that's actually done really well. The thing about Amazon is it takes a while to get reviews.
Yeah.
And then, you can get in these programs. And I think some of them might be free now, but you send products to people and they'll review it for you.
Oh, yeah. I've
Um,
seen that. Yeah.
yeah. So I haven't done that yet. The neat thing is it's just to see how different everybody is. So like, their taste, their palate for like the spice blends and stuff. Some of the reviews are really interesting when you start looking at it. Like if you see the people that love it, and then you see people that say, oh, it's sweet. And it's like there's no sugar in it. So it's kind of wild. You know how cilantro, some people think it tastes like soap.
Yeah.
So I've enjoyed actually watching that because everybody is so different. So there's people that love it, and then there's people that are like, oh, I want it spicier, I want it like this, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
The pimento cheese I just put on there, and I'm thinking about doing my original too. I just haven't done that yet. I'm fixing to March. I've tried to book up pretty strong doing the stores and like going and sampling. So it's like I'm trying to do a whole lot. And I don't, I'm trying to figure out where to focus. So
Yeah.
I figured March is going to be a lot of focus on the stores just because it's local, and, hopefully there's an opportunity there
Yeah.
later.
Do
So,
you find the Amazon people are a different geographic distribution than you expected?
yeah. So my product actually, so when we first launched the pimento cheese one back in December, we decided I couldn't actually, it was selling out because, that's really a holiday favorite. So it was selling out before I could get it back stocked because I do I let them do it. So I do FBA, but we decided maybe let's do me as a FBM, the merchant, and let me fulfill it while we're out. And so we did that for a while. So it's just amazing to see where you ship to. So I was shipping to Texas. Well, I mean, I was going all over the place. So that was pretty cool because, you know, you think it's just a Southern thing, but Southern people move to all these other states and, you know, they look for that kind of thing. So that's been kind of interesting. I've enjoyed that.
Yeah, very cool. All right. Hello, everybody. Kime, Gloria, Judy.
Good morning, guys. Hope everybody had a great weekend.
Yeah. Hey, Ruth.
Morning, everyone.
Hey,
Morning.
how's everybody?
All right. Well, today we're going to listen to the world's fastest talker about branding. And his name is Chuck Pettis. You're going to learn about him in a minute, but we're going to watch a big chunk of his videos today and the rest tomorrow. And then Wednesday, we're actually going to try something for the first time. We're actually going to try the branding worksheet that he included. So I posted that in chat and on the Facebook page if you want to download it. It's a PDF where we'll actually apply some of this stuff that we learned. But a lot of people in the past classes have really, really enjoyed this part, and I think it will help you with some of the terminology. You know, I find that sometimes in business, the lingo is a little hard to figure out what they're talking about if it's not something you work with every day. So I think this was a very practical approach to branding, and his examples I think you'll get right away. And then hopefully on Wednesday, we'll actually be able to apply it to your particular situation as best we can. I realize we can't, you know, it's not one-on-one. It's not as like I would like it to be, but we can at least take a shot at getting you started with particularly your brand message and your brand story is what I'm really interested in at the beginning. So anybody have any questions or thoughts they want to share before we go to that? Okay, hang on here. Okay, so this is Chuck Pettis, and he is a well-known branding guy in Silicon Valley, but he's going to talk about some of the companies he's worked with. I'm sure you'll be real familiar with a lot of them. Some you may not be, but let's see how it goes.
Okay, my name's Chuck Pettis. I love branding. I'm really going to have a good time telling you in 40 minutes everything you need to know almost about branding. I've been doing branding my whole career. And I've been an entrepreneurial family my whole career, and so I'm really connect with you. I've had the opportunity to work with some of the world's greatest brands in all different kinds: manufacturing, service, real estate, consumer, financial, lots of high tech, manufacturing, restaurants, boy, just about everything. Let me just skip through those. So branding is the most powerful tool in the commercial world. Very few people understand how brand works. I'm here to tell you how it really works because branding alters people's perceptions of reality. What I want to do is give you an overview of these most powerful branding tools that are used by the world's most powerful brands so that you can use these tools to help your company be super successful. What is brand? Brand is a trademark. It's a trust mark. It's a trust relationship. Brand is about perception. It actually has not that much to do with reality. Stanford did a study with kids, and they found out that anything that has McDonald's on it tastes better to kids. Whoa. There's the great test between Coke and Pepsi. If you do blind taste testing, where people are tasting Coke and Pepsi, but they don't know what they're tasting, 51% will prefer Pepsi over Coke. But if you do name testing, here's Coke, here's Pepsi, all of a sudden almost 3-to-1, people will prefer Coca-Cola over Pepsi. Huge. They did the same study where the subjects were in an fMRI scanning machine where most of the branding research is being done this day, i.e. what's going on in the brain when people are perceiving your brand. When the subjects didn't know what brand they were tasting, nothing happened in the brain. When they were cued with Pepsi, nothing happened in the brain. When they were cued with Coca-Cola, the brain lit up. In branding, we want the brain to light up emotionally. We want people to want your brand. Here is the brain on Coca-Cola. Here is the brain on Pepsi. I once did a workshop with one of the world's leading radiologists. He said, that's the pleasure center. It doesn't get much better than that. What has Coke done and what's Pepsi done? Coke has been on message. They repeated their key messages, delicious, refreshing, unique, for decades. They've kept the same logo. Pepsi keeps changing the logo. Pepsi keeps changing their messages. They actually just recently did.
I just want to take a second here to, if you think back to Simon Sinek, our very first class where we talked about what is your why? And the thing that he kept saying in that video is people don't buy what you sell, they buy why you sell it. So keep that concept in mind when Chuck is talking about emotion. That's what he's talking about. He's talking about why you do it, not your specific product necessarily, although that I don't mean to dismiss that. But the context of this is trying to create in your prospect, your customer, however you want to refer to them, client, in their mind, the feelings associated with your product. That's where the power is. That's where you will see that kind of, I talk about pushing a ton of rocks up a hill versus downhill skiing. Downhill skiing is when you are tuned into emotions of your customers, and it's an emotional thing, not a technical thing, not a factual thing. So I just want to be sure we're on the same page on that.
Did a commercial where they used delicious and refreshing, which is the words that Coca-Cola owns. So let me tell you how people perceive reality. We perceive reality through our senses. The first place a sense signal goes is the amygdala, the limbic system in the middle of our brain, where people unconsciously decide what they're hearing, seeing, feeling is relevant to them. We want to light up the emotional brain. Then the sense signal gets to the prefrontal cortex, which is the rational brain, and that's where we want them to see your messages. So when you're doing branding, we need to light up the emotional part of the brain first, and then we need to give them messages so they know they've made a right decision. First, we start with emotions, then we go to the rational. The way we light up the brain is through imagery. We need to pick the right imagery because people are bombarded with all these messages. They tune them out. If you show the right image to people, it'll get the brain to light up emotionally, they'll connect, and then you give them the messages. So then what we do is you got to pick the right images. Image first, then messages. Then you use a brand ladder. A brand ladder is where you pick your features, why people are going to buy your product, then the benefits, why is it good for them, and then you want to ask them, how does it make you feel when you deliver on that feature and those benefits? Then you find imagery that evokes the emotion connected to the top tier purchase factors. So you show the images that are connected to the top tier purchase factors, then they can read the features and the benefits. So we did a project with Geldwin, who's the world's largest manufacturer of windows and doors. And the number one purchase factor for windows is reliability. It's true for dealers, distributors, builders, remodelers, consumers. Actually, reliability is the number one purchase factor or feature in the world. Everybody wants reliability. So then we found out, how do we ladder that up? And what is the emotion for reliability when it comes to windows if you're a builder, remodeler? Reliability, and the emotion is peace of mind, because if the window arrives, it has a defect, it's late, it causes all kinds of problems. You want it to arrive on time, and it boils down to peace of mind. So it's all about imagery. Got to pick the right imagery, and you really ought to test imagery. You can test imagery first in your founder group, and then with your friends you can have pizza parties. So this is a major opportunity. If one thing I want you to take out of this, the number one thing is the use of powerful imagery to get your target audience's attention.
Okay, I want to pause here too, because he just said the one thing he wants you to get out of this is the importance of imagery, right? So I don't know how much time you all spend on imagery, whether it's your product shots, your customers using your product, or any of the related types of things. That is something that, if you were to hire a really high-powered consulting firm to help you with e-commerce, the very first thing they would do was look at all your images and look at the quality, the way they make people feel when they see them, the places where they are, right? If it's on the website, if it's on social media. So I find that a lot of people underestimate the power of imagery. And it's a really important concept that all of you, particularly if you're selling a product, service is a little bit of a different animal. But if you're selling a physical product, how much time and effort have you spent on the imagery and getting the right imagery? And realize that there's lots of resources for imagery that we can talk about, including a whole bunch of free stock photo places. But I did want to call your attention to this concept of if you don't learn anything else in this section, the use of powerful imagery to create a connection between the consumer and your brand is really a critical piece.
So here's the Geldon. No, let's go back to the Geldon if we could. Here's the brand letter. So here's Geldon ads. And we did all kinds of research to find out what kind of imagery would evoke peace of mind when it came to windows, because most people just show the frames. What we found out is if we show pictures of windows from the inside of a home to a beautiful pastoral landscape, it like totally did the job. This equaled billions of dollars to Geldon. It was huge. This stuff really works. So brand is your proprietary, emotional, visual, rational image. It is all about selling. This is not about fluff or hype or anything like that. It's about how do you sell quicker and faster. And a well-crafted value will increase the value of your brand and your company, so you can get better funding, you can get a higher multiplier, you can get a great exit. It's not about a new logo. The big trap you're going to run into if you go to a branding agency is most of these people have no idea of any of the stuff I've just talked about, and to them branding's a new logo. What a waste of time. Forget it. It's all about communicating what you do and communicate it in a way that people get it and they want it. It's about more sales, a quicker close, a better valuation, building trust, and attracting great people to come work for you.
Is that full screen for everybody?
Getting your brand remembered. You've heard the word repetition, I think,
Yes,
so
oh
far
my.
2 or 3 times this morning. In branding, the goal is you need to repeat your brand name and your top tier features or purchase factors over and over and over and over again. And like you need to memorize them. And it takes 28 times for people to actually remember stuff, so you need to repeat it verbatim. You can't reword it. This is not like writing essays where you do an intro and then set it all up and keep the good stuff for the end. In branding, we do the good stuff up front and we keep repeating it. So we did a big project for REI. This is the before image. So in REI, a lot of these people do mountain climbing and technical climbing. And so this is real cool to them. The problem is the target audience for REI is a regular person just wants to go for a walk, wants to go for a hike. And this totally scares them, makes their palms sweat. They throw away the catalog. We did research and we found out that if we show little people in big, beautiful landscapes, it totally turns on people who want to go in the outdoors. Because that was the goal. They wanted to motivate people to go in the outdoors and get more clothing and gear. They're still using the same kind of imagery in 2017, 2018. If you go to an REI store, you're going to see this kind of imagery.
I want to make a point about that also. So one of the things when you're an owner of a small business is you are going to get sick and tired of what you would consider the same old thing, whether it's the same old picture, the same old statement, anything that you do, you might feel like, oh my God, I am so tired of this. And what he just said, he started off talking about Coca-Cola, basically repeating the same message since the early 1900s. Think about working for Coca-Cola, how that would make you feel, right? So the repetition and the continuing, once you've hooked on to your message, really makes a huge difference in people understanding your brand. So don't get tired of it once you figure it out. You actually need to repeat it over and over and over, particularly if you are a challenger brand. If you're new to the space or you're somebody they don't know about, their only way to really get a sense of what it is you're doing is through your brand messaging, unless they have physically met you somewhere at a show or whatever, or sampling. So keep that in mind. It's a little bit of a hard concept to accept, especially once you've been in business for a while. You might say, oh my God, I'm sick of this. Stick with it.
Now we're going to do a brand identity map. Now I'm compressing a day into like 40 minutes, so fasten your seatbelt. So a brand identity map is a mind map. It's what you want everybody in your organization to say when they talk about your organization. It's going to need to be in all your marketing communications. It's got it all on one page. So this is a full brand identity map. We don't have enough time to do this one, so we're going to do an abbreviated one. And this is to ensure you get consistent, repeated messages and visuals in all your marketing communications, from the website all the way down through your presentations. So here's an example of a brand identity map we did for an organization called the Northwest Entrepreneur Network. Entrepreneurs. Shortest positioning statement we ever did. Positioning statement's your most repeated message. Helping entrepreneurs succeed. You might have heard that message be repeated a little bit here, talking about Blackstone Launchpad powered by Techstars. So, and the number 2 purchase factors or reasons to belong are make connections and access resources. This was done with quantitative research with everybody in this organization, so it's dead on. So, you need to repeat it. So here's the website. Northwest Entrepreneur Network, helping entrepreneurs succeed. Helping entrepreneurs succeed, the Northwest Entrepreneur Network helps entrepreneurs make the connections and access the resources they need to succeed. So when I talk about repeating, like I'm not making it up, helping entrepreneurs succeed repeated 3 times at like 20 some words. So you really need to repeat it. It's really important. And then what happens is, I left the board, they got a new marketing person. They got rid of the positioning statement. They got rid of the imagery. They came up with a slogan. Slogans and taglines are a waste of time. It's just one more thing to remember, and you got to figure out what the heck it means. So they go from start to excess, because internally they thought, oh man, we got something from the most beginning entrepreneur to the Bill Gates, which was totally not authentic, didn't work, and everything changed. They went down to 100 members, and they went out of business. This branding stuff puts people out of business. I've worked with big companies and we have put their competition out of business. I have worked with companies and made many people extremely wealthy. I'd like you all to become incredibly wealthy. And the way to do it is you need to use these techniques. So here's another problem. Only 1% of companies actually know why people buy their products. This is like a marketing branding sin. So you need to find out that when you're selling, what are the top 2 features that are going to get them to buy you instead of someone else? Sounds simple. Hardly anybody does it. You need to do this for your companies, because people out there are saying one thing when
we have been talking about what a good idea it is to talk to your customers or your users or so forth. And I don't know exactly what anyone in the class actually does to do that. But his statement he just made is only 1% of companies know why customers buy from them. There's really no reason for that in today's digital platforms. The ability to reach a customer, one way or the other, to ask them questions, and even if it's something simple, what's the number 1 reason you buy my brand, or what could I do that make you buy more, or I don't know. I don't want to get into the details, but conceptually. The idea of asking your customers or your prospects these questions really is a good idea. And some people use contests and promotions to kind of build excitement about something, maybe a giveaway or win a trip or whatever. But I think that's a really key concept that most companies really don't know the reason why people buy from them.
customers want another. Only 8% of Americans trust advertising because this is what's happening. We need to find out if what you do, which of your customers really connects with what you do. So I had the opportunity to work with my son, Bree Pettis, who founded a company called MakerBot here in Brooklyn. We grew that company to $400 million, exited at $400 million in 6 years, a manufacturing company. My son, Bree Pettis, is now doing whatever he wants, and he started a new company called Bantam Tools with desktop CNC machines. This was desktop 3D printing, and I got to be the VP of marketing for him when we rolled out this product, and it was such a blast. And Bree grew up with me, so he saw me using this stuff. We did brand identity maps, not only for the company, but for every product. And before Bree went on Colbert or any interview, he pulled out the brand identity map, and he made sure he got the messages down, so he was always on message. So this stuff really works. It's simple, but it takes a lot of discipline. So we're going to cover each part of this brand identity one part at a time. I'm just going to do this like really quickly. This is to give you a quick idea of what it's all about. And it's actually important if you could actually do market research to validate what you come up with. So we're going to cover the brand name, target audience, category descriptor, features, positioning statement. Okay. So here's the map. You all got one of these. First is, who's your target audience? So a target audience, you want to find out demographics, psychographics, who are they, what do they look like? Ideally, we give your target audience a name, so when you're talking about the rest of the parts of this brand identity map, you can say, well, what does Hank or what does Sally want? And it should be distinctive, and it should be actionable for your marketing. So write your target audience in your map. Maybe you have one or two. So at MakerBot, while you're doing that, we started off thinking the target audience was hobbyists and people were going to buy a desktop 3D printer. Then we rapidly found out that hobbyists only buy one 3D printer, but when we sold to companies like GE, they bought lots of desktop 3D printers. So we switched the target audience from hobbyists to companies. Bingo, sales totally took off. Okay, brand name. Okay, so it was really interesting to see you've got a lot of unique brand names, so I congratulate you on that. The problem these days with brand names is finding one that's available for a trademark standpoint and also available for a domain name. Super hard. Memorable, short, and by the way, don't use acronyms. Words are 60% more memorable than acronyms. Using an acronym is a sure way to get people to forget your name and what you're doing. So category descriptor, this is actually really important. Back in the late 90s, all the high-tech companies, I wrote a book called Technobrands, all the high-tech companies thought branding is what it's at, so they started brand naming every product and coming up with tchotchkes and coffee cups and t-shirts, and they thought branding was done. I remember going to Sun where I did branding for the Sun Ultra Enterprise servers. And we'd done a map of all Sun in the middle and all their brand names, and there were like 70 brand names all around Sun, looked like the asteroid belt. And Scott McNeely was there, and they all realized that they made a major mistake here because nobody knew who all these names were. Plus, it takes a lot of money to manage those trademarks. So people like that, like at Microsoft, unless you're a billion-dollar brand, you don't get a new brand name. You have to use one of the existing Microsoft brands, and you need to use a category descriptor. A category descriptor is 2 to 4 words. It's a generic phrase. It's a hook so people know what you're talking about. And so desktop 3D printer. That was a term we actually made up at MakerBot that hadn't been used before. Now that's the generic accepted term. Tablet, smartphone. So this is not a funny name. This is not a made up name. This is what hook do you want to fit on in the minds of your customers. And you always want to link your brand name and a category descriptor. So I've done a bunch of work for HP LaserJet printers. And they always do HP LaserJet printers. So you want to put your brand name and your category descriptor right afterwards so people hook your name and can associate your name with the category you're in. This is actually a really important decision for you to make. Category descriptors, you need to have it so people really get it quick. One thing you can do is you come up with a list of category descriptors, you brainstorm. You get your team together. You give them, let's say you got 5 category descriptors, you give everybody 2 votes. You have them vote for the category descriptors that's going to be most simplest and easiest to understand for the target audience. And then you can do that with actually, ideally, your target audience, do some market research with them. SurveyMonkey works great. This is one that's really worth researching.
Okay, I warned everybody that he talked fast. So what he's talking about here is something we've talked about, and that is this whole idea of category and category description. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to encourage you to go back and look at the category descriptor stuff that we talked about. It's on our member resources on acceleraterural.org. You can see the whole category section, and you can pick out some of the videos and kind of refresh your memory about that. Or I believe it's Grant has posted it in our YouTube stuff as well. But that's a really important thing that you need to understand. What category are you in? Are you in a category of your own, a new category that you've created, or are you in an existing category, and how do you fit in to that category? So this is a really critical piece. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to encourage everybody, again, if you have time, to look through this morning's videos. There's 4 of them, and we're going to finish it up tomorrow. But he talks so fast that it's sometimes hard to understand what he's emphasizing. But things like the category, the description, and the emotions that your brand elicits are really worth re-looking at that and retooling that, and make sure you're comfortable with that. On Wednesday, we're going to try to tease some of that out for those of you who want to do that, with these worksheets. And that worksheet that he's talking about is posted in the chat here, and it's on the Facebook group if anyone needs it, or Grant, if you're able to send it to the group, whatever works. That's what we're going to work with on Wednesday, is the work papers that come with this section. We can't use the actual stuff on the web, because that actually goes to Techstars, not to me. So if you fill all that out, I'll never see it. So we have to kind of print out the PDFs and do it the old-fashioned way, because I don't have visibility into the back end of that system, unfortunately. Maybe someday we'll have that ability. So that's what I had planned for today. Hopefully give you time to review this stuff. I worry that this guy is such a fast talker that it's easy to miss really important stuff. So I encourage you to take a look at them, his videos on our member resources on acceleraterural.org, and make sure you take a look at the document that I've posted. And we'll finish up with his videos tomorrow. And then Wednesday, we're going to spend a little time actually going through the workbook and try to get you started on the idea for your own business. And hopefully we can get a good start on that, because it really is the critical piece of this class, is the ability to brand your stuff, your business, your products, and really clearly identify the emotional connection between your products and your customers. Anybody have any comments or experiences they want to share with branding that they've learned?
Is there supposed to be a link here in the chat, Dennis? I'm not seeing it. If there is.
Let's see. I put it there earlier. Let me see if it disappeared. Yeah, it says brand your business, and it's got a PDF icon. It's the very first thing in the chat, 9:26 a.m. It's also on the Facebook group. So it doesn't show up on yours, Ruth?
Donna's at 9:54 is the first thing I see.
Okay,
Yeah,
it must be.
I think since you were the only one in the chat, Dennis, it wouldn't show up.
Okay.
Stay in the chat.
Okay, let me post it again. How about that?
Cool.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, no problem. Let's see. See, I thought I was being so tricky putting that in there to start with, but There you go. Now, hopefully everyone can see it. And it's also on the Facebook group if you're having trouble seeing it. Has anybody played around at all with branding? Is that any kind of formal process for anybody here that they want to share?
I'll share that we ran into an early challenge when we just made a decision on our name, Heaven's Gate Orchard, which we had one set of rules that we were doing, and we liked the imagery of it. And then somebody came to me and said, "You realize that Heaven's Gate was a cult that was associated with going into outer space and had a mass murder suicide event." And I was like, well, no, now that you mention it, I do kind of remember that. And we talked about it, and I made a conscious decision that any advertising is good advertising, that we would have to overcome that image with people, but that the name stuck, that people thought about it. And so we decided to run with it anyway, despite the bad press that initially went with it.
Very interesting.
It may have been a stupid decision, but
Ruth, what's your story?
So I have two. One goes back to IBM, and I did a lot of work with the branding folks because we had branding police that were incredible. But I understand why when you have a brand like IBM, you're protecting. And so we were looking at some iconic graphic images for a product. And we had this tree that we thought was just really pretty. It's kind of a basic, trunk and coming up. And so when we tested it in Japan, it really failed because people thought it looked like a mushroom cloud, a nuclear explosion. Yeah. So, from early on, I mean, now it's been close to 30 years ago. I've learned that you really have to think about the image, that what looks so clear to you is really, based on somebody else's cultural differences, it can be way off. And then I did some tests on Instagram. I did some photographs. It wasn't kind of exactly like the icon or my name or anything like that, but I did one product, and I had things that looked kind of cutesy and country. And then I did the same product, but I had a very clean, graphical, modern look to it. And both posts in Instagram. And when I looked at who had responded, there was a drastic difference in the age as well as the sex of people who had responded to the cutesy country one versus the graphical clean one. So I really kind of started thinking about the imagery that I use even in Instagram post.
Yeah, very, very interesting. And, in this video, Chuck Pettis talks about having all your stuff have the same branding, not just silos of different things. So that really makes a lot of sense. I'll share one quick story. So when I first moved to Pink Hill, I got involved with trying to create a muscadine juice, because muscadines grew on my wife's farm, and this area where I live is there are a lot of muscadine growers, and they mostly grow for Duplin Winery, if you've ever heard of them. So we started trying to look at doing a muscadine juice, and my wife's family name is Maxwell, which is fairly well known in this area. So the first name that we came up with was Mom, Maxwell's own muscadine juice, right? So we didn't really launch with that, but we kind of did some publicity and press releases and some branding drawings and stuff. Well, about a week later, I get a certified letter from Palm Wonderful, the pomegranate juice, accusing me of trying to steal their trademark, Palm, and they would immediately cease and desist using our mark that would cause confusion with customers. And as I told my investors at the time, that's a really good thing that the biggest player in the space learned about us really quickly. So we ended up becoming Carolina Wild, which was not, nobody could claim anything about that, luckily. But that was a really interesting experience to see them obviously paying close attention to their brand, and anybody in the juice space who wanted to try to leverage their brand awareness, because they had spent a lot of money to make that juice. One other thing that I learned about it, and this is the beauty of hindsight. So I looked at Palm as a wildly successful brand that was on TV, was in all the grocery stores. I've just assumed they were very, very successful. And this is the wildest story. So just somewhat luckily or whatever, I was connected to a guy who was the general manager of Palm for 10 years. He happens to live in North Carolina, and he happened to connect with me through a mutual friend. So I got to know this guy. We met a bunch of times. It turns out that Palm itself has lost over $1 billion in 10 years. But they don't care, because it gave them another product to sell in the grocery stores on top of their pomegranates and their other stuff, which they really cared about. They did not care. So the juice was strictly a loss leader to get space in more grocery stores. That was the reason that brand was done. It's never made a penny. So needless to say, I was very chagrined when I told my investors that things are not what they seem. And it's actually very, very expensive to do a fresh juice at scale, as I learned. And there is a good reason why they lost so much money. It is really hard to refrigerate it, get it to all of these distribution centers without it going bad, yada, yada, yada. So that was a lesson that I learned. And I hope the guy was telling me the truth. I think he was. He was a pretty good guy. But who would ever guess that? I never dreamed. It turned out the guy who owns Palm is this mogul who owns almost all the water in California. And his whole angle is completely unrelated to Palm juice. That's just a means to an end. So there you go.
Chuck Pettis talked briefly about trademark. Are we going to talk at a future session more about trademark, the benefits and the timing of doing it?
Yeah, we can. I've had quite a bit of experience in that arena, and so yeah, we can either make that a class, or if not everyone cares about that, we can just do a one-on-one, Ray, and I can share with you. There are lots of different angles to that: trademark, service mark, etc. But yeah, we can cover that for you.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, go ahead.
I'll also add that Ruth was talking about social media, and if you go to use hashtags on Instagram and you want to try to, maybe use a different hashtag you don't normally use, I've gotten the habit of always checking the hashtag before I use it, because hashtag pies, because we make a lot of pies at Thanksgiving, shows you a lot of pictures of feet and dogs. There's not a single edible pie in there.
Crazy.
So, yeah, check
how
your
about
hashtag.
how about hashtag fruit pie? Would that work?
Well, that probably, yeah. So you just have to be more specific, or, kind of follow other pie people to see what kind of hashtags they're using. But
I love it. Follow other pie people. That's the quote of the day. I love that. Follow other pie people. Thank you. Chris, I did want to tell you, I did try one of your cookies. Elizabeth was very nice, my wife, to give me one cookie out of all of the cookies that she is, and I fought for that, but boy, was it good. Thank you. I really enjoyed that.
thank you.
Someday I might get another cookie. You never know. So my wife used Chris Cookie in her business for clients that she hadn't been able to see because of the pandemic. So she sent a bunch of them cookies, and it's wildly popular apparently. So That's very cool. All right. Well, I'm going to go find some pie people, I think, and follow them because that's got my interest up a great deal. So we'll reconnect tomorrow. And if anyone had problem getting that document, let me know. And I don't know what I'll do. We'll email or do something with it so that you get it. But I look forward to this, and thanks for your comments and observations.